I came to Oregon in 1952. My sister went to nursing school in Portland, and she met Wendy, who later became my wife. About the fifth year of our marriage, we had Karen. She was our third. She was just joyful, happy, fun-loving girl, easy to raise. I ended up in a large church that had a publishing plant, and I ran the printing end of that publishing plant. They had a daycare, and I had the opportunity to use that free of charge as part of my compensation. I ran into difficulty saying anything about the daycare because it was my boss's grandson that worked there that ultimately was Karen's abuser. And so when I got wind of things, we thought it was just unusual discipline, and so I just started to complain about it. And it was at that point that I was asked to quit complaining about it and really told by a board member that my job would probably be in jeopardy if I didn't just be quiet. It didn't even hardly occur to us that sexual abuse was going on. I noticed just some unusual activity in a very happy child, very normal child in many ways. She would steal things from the store, and she was more attracted to neighbor boys, and she wanted to be kissed by boys. And it was after I had actually been fired that I realized how bad the things actually had been in that daycare. As Karen got older, she would lie to me. She would get drunk, become promiscuous. It was hard to think that my very happy, very intelligent, very pretty daughter would have this dark side to her. I guess I wasn't surprised that she got involved with a Navy guy, ended up getting married. It was an awful relationship. They eventually had divorced, and she was just beside herself. And she did meet a man at that point. They have now been married for quite a while, and she is now doing much better. But oh, if she could have been saved all that grief of having to go to the very bottom before she could build her life into a happy one.
As my dad said, I was a very happy, lively young child. And when I was 4, that changed. I cried out for help in the way that most small children do. I started soiling my pants. I started acting out, having negative behaviors, demanding attention any way that I could. My cry for help was not heard. I was just disciplined for my wrong actions. So I closed up and started a spiral effect of behaviors, negative behaviors. And by the time I was 13, I was so full of rage and anxiety that my parents took me to counseling. And it was after a couple of months of counseling that a small piece of my story came out. And that is when detectives were notified, but unfortunately unable to do anything. And so I started my spiral effect again. By my junior year of high school, I was dabbling in drugs. I was drinking a lot, partying a lot, and it was at a party one night where I was brutally raped by a classmate. After that rape, I attempted suicide, dropped out of high school. Trouble followed me everywhere I went. At 18, I became pregnant and married a Navy man. It's not a big surprise that I made a perfect wife for a domestic violent relationship. He left me on the streets with 2 babies and nothing. I found a job at a church daycare where not long after I started there, I found out that my oldest daughter was being sexually abused by a teen worker there. How on earth was my story being replicated in my own child? And that's when I knew I needed help. And it was a very slow healing process. The longer I had counseling, the more progress I made. And it was during that time that I actually met my wonderful husband, Eric. And shortly after we were married, I was in a class for moms of sexually abused kids. And that's when I first started seeing textbooks and printouts on victims. And I realized that my entire life and all my symptoms were in a textbook. And I also realized after walking through my daughter's process with her that all kids didn't have to end up like me. She was taken care of right away, and we had her in therapy for years. And she is now carefree, she is happy, she has high ambitions for her life. But through that all, I realized that this is possible for any child. And this is exactly what the Children's Center does. It gives these children healing. It gives them hope. It gives them a future. And not just the children, but the families. If my mom and dad would have walked through Children's Center doors, we would not have all this pain. 25 years of pain. I know my parents still have regrets for all this pain we had to go through. And with Children's Center, it doesn't have to be that way. With the Children's Center, we can start changing these statistics one child and one family at a time.